I mean, it was the perfect opportunity to get rid of all doubts, but instead, he took it as a moment to change the narrative. And that's what all the Democrats are doing right now. They want to make this about the Supreme Court. There was nothing to see last week when it comes to the president and his mental fitness. It's all about them. This is them reacting, by the way.
There he goes. Back of his head.
That's squad ruling. This is a ruling that says that as long as you can construe it as an official or quasi-official act, you can do absolutely anything, and never be held accountable, not only while you are president, but forever.
They've declared the president and former presidents to be kings, but they've also declared themselves the hand of the king.
It's almost like a license to thug in a way. Like, you can do whatever you want, and the Supreme Court is probably going to let you get away with it.
This is something that the justices actually wrote down and put in writing, which is that we do now have a king.
Yesterday, it was very clearly a huge victory for Donald Trump. He wanted absolute immunity. They gave him immunity, however, when he is in the commission, the president of official acts. Let's bring in Gregg Jarrett, Fox News legal analyst. He's been chewing on this for a little while. So, Greg, now it's all going to come down to, I don't think any of those people we just saw actually read the opinion, because John Roberts, the Chief Justice, made it very clear. The president and no person is above the law. But if he's in the commission of an official act, that's okay. Now, of course, the lower court, Chutkan, the judge, is going to have to determine whether or not all that stuff was official or non-official.
Yeah, I mean, the mass hysteria among the liberal media and Democrats is really quite overwrought. It's exaggerated vitriol. This was a common sense, well-reasoned opinion. It was quite obvious and predictable. The Supreme Court did exactly what I said they'd do months ago, which was extend the 40-year-long civil liability protection to criminal culpability, because the same reasoning applies. And, Steve, I think the immunity decision affects all of the Trump cases. At minimum, it delays them because the admissibility of evidence now has changed rather dramatically. The Supreme Court said prosecutors cannot even introduce testimony of official acts at trial. So that means special counsel Jack Smith will have to scale back his two prosecutions considerably, maybe abandon some of the charges entirely. If he does go forward, the trial courts then have to hold evidentiary hearings. What's admissible? What's not? And Trump can appeal those decisions directly, which only delays the trial. So this, I think, makes it nearly impossible for Smith's case to happen before the election.
What about
Same
New
with
York?
the Georgia case.
But what about New York, though, Greg? Because the whole defense of the former president was that it was a business expense. It was a legal expense. He was president at the time where the expense happened, but it was a business transaction. So this new appeal to the court, would this have the standing for the court to hear?
Well, you know, Lawrence, if we were talking about a neutral, impartial judge who actually cares about fairness and due process, then Trump's request yesterday evening to postpone the sentencing, consider setting aside the verdict, would be seriously entertained. But, you know, that's not Juan Merchan. His bias writ large at trial enabled a wrongful conviction. He trampled over the defendant's rights, reversible errors galore. He obliterated the rules of evidence, and he committed truly shocking constitutional violations. So are we now to expect that same judge to have an epiphany of ethics and dismantle what he has done? No, that's not Merchan. The verdict, I think, will eventually be reversed, but not by this judge or any court in New York. Only the federal courts will offer relief, because they're the ones that care about the rule of law and due process.
Greg, I have a follow-up question on the federal cases and Jack Smith's cases against the president. What's kind of flown under the radar is the dissent by Justice Clarence Thomas, where he actually questions the constitutionality not just of special counsel Jack Smith and the way he was appointed, but special counsels in general. So is that a question, do you think, that you may come up and when this is returned to the lower courts and potentially sent back to the Supreme Court at some point?
Katie, absolutely. I think you're right. It is an issue in a pretrial motion and hearing already by the Florida judge, Aileen Cannon. And, you know, she paid attention to the friend of the court brief that was filed by two former attorneys general, Edwin Meese and Michael Mukasey, and they make a very persuasive, compelling argument that there is no law establishing this special counsel, only regulation, but under the law, at minimum, it has to be a Senate-approved position. Look at all of the other special counsels. They were former U.S. attorneys who were Senate-approved. That's not Jack Smith. For a nanosecond, he was an acting U.S. attorney, but he was never Senate-approved. So, you know, that is for consideration not just by the trial court in Florida, but on appeal as well.
So, Greg, this question will be make it abundantly clear I didn't go to law school. But just to dumb it down a little bit, Nixon tried to do immunity with Watergate. He says, I'm immune, I'm president of the United States. But he did something illegal, goes into the DNC, tries to break into Watergate, their headquarters. So if you do something, the example that dissent gave of bribery or murder, that's against the law. That would not exonerate the president. Just because you're president and this ruling's handed down doesn't mean you can just bribe people and murder people. That it's about his actions as president, correct?
Yeah, you know, I think Sotomayor missed the entire point of the majority ruling. The things she's citing, SEAL Team 6 can kill a political opponent, that's not a core constitutional purpose. And the Supreme Court made it abundantly clear in their ruling that only core constitutional purposes, official acts, are protected with immunity. All other things are not official. They are private acts. And if they are criminal, then a president or former president is criminally culpable.
Remember President Obama killed al-Awlaki. He was in Yemen, but he's an American citizen. Could Barack Obama be brought up on murder charges? So is that what people want?
Yeah, I mean, that is the classic example. There have been other actions by prior presidents that may well have crossed the line. But they were never criminally charged because there was a respect for the office of the presidency. Presidents sometimes have to make tough decisions. They don't always get it right. But the court has finally, belatedly, because of the rise of lawfare, now decided we have to extend the civil immunity to criminal immunity with limitations that are common sense.
Well, despite the unhinged nature of the response, this ruling actually protects Republican presidents and Democratic presidents from prosecution in office.
Going forward.
Great
Thanks,
job, Greg.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.